So, have you ever looked back at your school days and felt like something was, well, missing? Or
Mhm.
maybe that what you learned felt completely disconnected from, actual life, the
Yeah.
challenges, the
Yeah,
joys.
absolutely. That feeling that it wasn't quite real. It's a feeling a lot of us share, I think.
Right. And it often pushes us into this, like, mental trap, framing education as this stark
The
choice.
old way versus the new way.
Exactly. Traditional versus progressive. This either or thing.
It's true. That kind of thinking is everywhere, isn't it? But what if there's a philosophy that goes beyond those simple opposites?
Okay.
One that tries to get at a deeper understanding of what education really is.
That sounds interesting.
Well, that's pretty much what John Dewey spent his life exploring. I mean, this guy was a monumental figure in American thought.
Yeah, I've heard the name. Big deal in philosophy, right?
Huge. Alfred North Whitehead said he made philosophic thought relevant to the needs of their own day.
Relevant. Okay,
Okay.
that's key.
And Morris R. Cohen. He called him unquestionably the preeminent figure in American philosophy, even the national philosopher.
Wow, national philosopher. That's quite a title. And it wasn't just theory, was it? He actually influenced schools.
Oh, definitely. William Hurd Kilpatrick pointed out Dewey's profound influence on both the theory and the practice of American education. He really shaped things on the ground.
So for this deep dive, we're focusing on one specific work.
Yes, his really concise, very readable 1938 book, Experience in Education. It came out of the Kappa Delta Pi lecture series.
Experience and education. Got it. And our goal today isn't about picking sides in those old debates.
Not at all. The idea is to understand Dewey's deeper, more constructive philosophy, what he called education pure and simple.
Okay, education pure and simple. I like that.
And this book is great because it's not just him repeating earlier ideas, he's actually refining things here.
Ah, so he'd seen how things played out.
Exactly. He'd observed the progressive schools that were inspired by his work, saw the good and the bad, and he took the criticism seriously. It really shows his thinking evolving.
Okay, let's get into that either or trap then. Dewey tackles this right at the start, you said.
Straight away, he points out that, mankind likes to think in terms of extreme opposites.
Guilty as charged.
Right. And in education, that shows up as this sharp contrast.
Yeah.
Traditional versus progressive.
So what did that traditional model actually look like, according to Dewey?
Well, the core idea was education as transmission, handing down bodies of information and of skills that have been worked out in the past.
Passing down knowledge.
And not just knowledge, but also established standards and rules of conduct. Think about the typical school back then.
Right. Desks and rows. Strict schedules.
Precisely. He described it as sharply marked off from other social institutions. Rigid time schedules, exams, rules of order, very separate from the outside world.
Yeah, almost like a little walled garden or maybe a factory sometimes. And the teacher and student roles.
Very defined. Books, especially textbooks, were the ultimate source, chief representatives of the lore and wisdom of the past.
The authority.
Totally. And teachers. They were the organs connecting students to this material, the agents through which knowledge and skills are communicated and rules of conduct enforced.
So the teacher delivers, the student receives.
Exactly. The student's job was basically docility, receptivity, and obedience. Just soak it up.
You know, it sounds stark, but elements of that still echo today, even if it's less extreme. What did Dewey see as the core problem with this imposition from above?
He was really critical. He saw it as just that, an imposition from above and from outside.
Okay.
The standards, the subjects, they were often foreign to the existing capacities of the young, just totally beyond the reach of the experience the young learners already possess.
So disconnected.
Completely. And it treated knowledge as static, like it was this finished product you just had to memorize. He felt that killed genuine learning.
Okay, so that makes sense why progressive education popped up as a reaction. It sounds like it basically flipped everything.
Pretty much. Where traditional education imposed, progressive education aimed for expression and cultivation of individuality.
Freedom, creativity.
Right. External discipline, replaced by free activity. Learning from books shifted to learning through experience.
Hands-on stuff.
Yeah. Rote drill was out. Instead, you'd acquire skills as means of attaining end, which make direct, vital appeal. Things that actually mattered to the learner now.
And less focus on just preparing for some distant future.
Exactly. More about making the most of the opportunities of present life and getting acquainted with a changing world, not just memorizing facts about a static past.
Yeah, it sounds way more engaging, honestly. But Dewey, being Dewey, saw some issues with just reacting, right? A potential downside.
He absolutely did. He was worried that any new movement, just by rejecting the old ways, could end up developing its principles negatively rather than positively and constructively.
Meaning?
Meaning, instead of building a solid positive foundation, it just becomes about not doing what the traditional schools did.
Ah, I see. Like defining yourself by what you're against.
Precisely. And he saw this leading to things like planless improvisation.
Just making it up as you go along.
Kind of.
Hmm.
And maybe making little or nothing of organized subject matter, because that felt too traditional. Or even seeing any adult guidance as an invasion of individual freedom.
Oh, okay. That sounds like it could get chaotic fast. Throwing the baby out with the bathwater, maybe?
That's a good way to put it. And the consequences he observed in some progressive schools were, well, ironic.
How so?
It could actually lead to a new kind of dogmatism, like a rigid insistence on absolute freedom without clear purpose.
Right, freedom just for the sake of it.
Yeah. And he pointed out that a system built only on reacting against the old ways was often more difficult to run well than the traditional system it replaced,
More difficult. Wow.
because it lacked a coherent, positive structure. It wasn't necessarily easier, just less directed, maybe even more confusing.
Okay, so if just flipping the traditional model isn't the answer, and the opposite extreme has its own pitfalls, what is Dewey's solution? Where does he ground his thinking?
He insists there has to be one permanent frame of reference. And for him, that is the organic connection between education and personal experience.
Experience, that's the key word.
That's his cornerstone, his whole theory of experience.
But it's not just any experience, right? He makes a distinction.
A crucial one. Right away, he says, the belief that all genuine education comes about through experience does not mean that all experiences are genuinely or equally educative.
Okay, wait. Say that again? Not all experiences are educative.
Exactly. Some experiences, he warns, are actually miseducative.
Miseducative, what does that mean?
It means they actively arrest or distort the growth of further experience. They shut down learning instead of promoting it.
Wow. So an experience could actually make you less likely to learn in the future. Can you give examples?
Sure. He talks about experiences that might engender callousness or make someone less sensitive, or experiences that lead you into a groove or rut, making you less adaptable.
Okay, I can see that.
Or maybe promoting a slack and careless attitude, or experiences that are just so disconnected from one another that they leave you feeling kind of scatterbrained.
That makes so much sense. It's not just about doing things. It's about what those things do to your capacity for future growth. That's huge for parents, teachers, anyone trying to guide learning.
Absolutely. And applying this back to traditional schools, Dewey's point wasn't that students had zero experiences there.
Right. They were definitely having experiences. Boredom, maybe. Frustration.
Exactly. He argued the experiences they had were largely of a wrong kind, like maybe losing the natural impulse to learn,
Yeah, getting turned off school.
or acquiring skills through automatic drill that actually limited their ability to think critically or apply those skills flexibly, or just associating learning itself with ennui and boredom.
So the goal isn't just more experience, it's about the quality of the experience.
That's the heart of it.
So how do we judge that quality? How do we know if an experience is genuinely educative, not miseducative? What's Dewey's test?
Well, he says every experience has two sides to it. There's the immediate aspect of agreeableness or disagreeableness, how it feels right now.
Fun or not fun, basically.
Right. But more importantly, there's its influence upon later experiences. What impact does it have down the road?
Ah, the long view.
Exactly. So he says the central problem of an education based upon experience is to select the kind of present experiences that live fruitfully and creatively in subsequent experiences.
Selecting experiences that open doors for the future, not close them.
You got it. It's all about that future impact.
Okay, that leads us nicely into his two big criteria for what makes an experience truly educative: continuity and interaction. Let's take continuity first. What's he getting at with the experiential continuum?
Continuity basically means that every single thing you do and go through changes you, modifies you somehow.
Makes sense.
And that change, that modification, affects the quality of subsequent experiences. It shapes how you'll approach the next thing.
So it's a chain reaction.
Kind of. He puts it beautifully.
Yeah.
Every experience both takes up something from those which have gone before and modifies in some way the quality of those which come after. It's this ongoing flow. He even evokes that Tennyson line about experience being an arch.
Wherefore gleams that untraveled world. Yeah, I remember that. So each experience opens up the next.
Or closes it off. potentially.
Yeah.
That's why growth by itself isn't enough for Dewey.
What do you mean? Isn't growth always good?
Not necessarily. It has to be growth that leads to more growth, continuing growth in general.
Hmm.
He uses the example of a burglar becoming a more skillful burglar.
Huh. Okay, right. That's technically growth in a skill.
But it's growth in a direction that probably retards growth in general because it shuts off the person from the occasions, stimuli, and opportunities for continuing growth in new directions. It's limiting.
That's a really sharp point. Not all development is equally good for your overall potential.
Precisely. And this idea of continuity is why he critiques the traditional notion of preparation.
How so? Preparing for the future sounds important.
It is. But the way traditional schools did it was flawed, he thought. They focused on acquiring certain skills and subjects which would be needed later.
Like memorizing formulas you might use someday.
Right. But Dewey argued this prepares you poorly because that knowledge often gets stowed away in watertight compartments. It's isolated.
So it's not actually available when you need it in a real-life situation.
Often not. True preparation, for Dewey, means extracting at each present time the full meaning of each present experience. Learning deeply now is the best preparation for the future.
Wow, that flips the script. It also puts a lot more responsibility on the educator, doesn't it?
Immense responsibility.
Mm.
Their greater maturity of experience isn't just about knowing more stuff. It means they need the insight to organize the conditions of the experience of the immature
So setting things up for meaningful learning.
and guiding where an experience is likely heading, knowing what attitudes are actually conducive to continued growth.
Mm-hmm.
He explicitly says this is a more difficult affair than the old methods.
Yeah, it sounds much harder than just following a textbook. It requires real understanding.
A deep understanding of both the learner and the learning process itself. Which leads us to his second principle, interaction.
Interaction. Okay, what's that about?
Experience, Dewey says, isn't just internal. It's an interplay, a back and forth between two sets of conditions.
Two sets?
Yep. First, the objective conditions. That's the external stuff. The environment, other people,
Yeah.
tools, books, the whole social setup.
Okay, the outside world.
And second, the internal conditions. That's what's going on inside the individual. Their needs, desires, purposes, skills, knowledge.
Mindset, readiness, motivation.
Exactly. And these two, the objective and the internal, interacting together, create what Dewey calls a situation.
A situation. Got it. So traditional education messed this up. How?
It basically ignored the internal factors. It focused almost entirely on the objectives, the subject matter, the rules, and disregarded the student's own needs and capacities.
Right. Just pour the information in.
But then, he warns, some progressive schools went too far the other way. They ended up systematically subordinating objective conditions to those which reside in the individuals.
Focusing only on the child's interests, maybe ignoring the structure or the external realities.
Potentially, yeah. It's about finding the right balance.
Yeah.
That productive interplay between the learner and their world.
Does he give an example?
A really lovely one, actually. The wise mother managing her baby's feeding and sleeping schedule. She obviously considers the baby's needs, hunger, tiredness. Those are the internal conditions.
Sure.
But she doesn't just react moment to moment. She uses the funded experience of the past, like advice from doctors, what's generally known about infant development. Those are objective conditions, external knowledge.
Right. She uses established knowledge to structure things.
Exactly. And by doing that, by arranging the objective conditions thoughtfully, she actually enlarges her own freedom and promotes the baby's healthy development. It's not limiting, it's enabling.
That's a fantastic example. It shows how structure, based on knowledge, can actually support individual needs. So continuity and interaction aren't really separate things.
He says they're inseparable, like the longitudinal and lateral aspects of experience.
Longitudinal and lateral, like time and space.
Sort of. Continuity is the forward movement through time, how past experiences shape future ones. Interaction is the sideways connection, how you engage with the environment right now in a specific situation.
Okay. So what you learn now, interaction, becomes a tool you carry forward. Continuity.
Precisely. And this leads to building an integrated personality, someone who can connect their experiences and act effectively in different situations.
So the educator's main job, then, is managing these situations.
That's the core task. Their primary concern is with the situations in which interaction takes place, specifically regulating the objective conditions, the environment, the activities, the resources to create experiences that will be truly educative.
while also keeping in mind the needs and capacities of the individuals involved.
Exactly. It's that constant balancing act. It's a really dynamic view of teaching and learning.
Okay, this connects directly to freedom then. If the teacher is structuring situations, how does that fit with the progressive idea of freedom? Dewey must redefine it.
He does. He argues strongly that the most important freedom isn't just freedom of movement or external activity. Letting kids run around isn't the main goal.
So what is?
The real goal is freedom of intelligence.
Freedom of intelligence.
Yeah. Freedom of observation and of judgment, exercised in behalf of purposes that are intrinsically worthwhile. It's about being able to think clearly, judge wisely, and pursue meaningful goals.
So physical freedom, being active, that's still important.
Oh yes, but as a means, not an end. It helps teachers actually see what students are like. It supports active learning. Think of a workshop versus silent rows, and it's good for physical and mental health.
But if you treat that external freedom as the only goal,
Then, Dewey warns, it can lead to the destruction of the shared cooperative activities that are crucial for learning in a social context. It becomes negative, just freedom from constraint rather than freedom to achieve something worthwhile.
this really shifts the focus. Freedom isn't just lack of rules, it's having the power to act intelligently.
That's exactly it. Dewey defines true freedom as power to frame purposes, to judge wisely, to evaluate desires by the consequences. Power to select an order means to carry chosen ends into operation. It's about agency and capability.
And this power, this freedom of intelligence, leads to what he calls the ultimate aim.
Self-control. That's the ideal aim of education for Dewey.
But again, probably not self-control in the traditional sense of just obeying rules.
Not at all. It's not about being forced to behave by external pressure. It's inhibition through an individual's own reflection and judgment.
Internal control.
Yes. He calls it the stop and think psychology.
Yeah.
You pause, you consider, you make a judgment, and then you act or refrain from acting.
Based on your own understanding.
Right. Otherwise, if your actions are just dictated by immediate whim and caprice, you might feel free, but it's just an illusion of freedom. You're actually a slave to impulse.
Okay, that's a deep distinction. Internal self-control versus external compliance. But how does this fit with the need for, social order in a classroom or any group? How do you get social control without imposing it?
He uses a great analogy here.
Like sports.
Exactly. Think about baseball. The rule's 3 strikes. Run the bases this way. They aren't felt as some external force being imposed on the players, are they?
No, they're just part of the game. You accept them to play.
Precisely. The rules are inherent to the activity. Control comes from the whole situation in which individuals are involved, in which they share, and of which they are cooperative or interacting parts.
So the structure of the activity itself provides the control?
Largely, yes. Disputes usually aren't about whether the rules should exist, but about whether someone violated the agreed-upon rules.
Okay, so how does that translate to a classroom, especially these new schools he talks about?
In those schools, control, ideally, resides in the very nature of the work done as a social enterprise. The group is working together on something meaningful.
And the teacher's role, not the rule enforcer.
Not an external boss or dictator, more like a leader of group activities. They exercise authority, yes, but in behalf of the interests of the group.
Leading the project, guiding the collaboration.
Right. And do you believe children are actually more sensitive to the signs and symptoms of whether a teacher is acting fairly for the group versus just bossing them around for personal reasons?
That feels true. Kids have a strong sense of fairness. But this kind of group-based control doesn't just happen automatically, does it?
Definitely not. It requires thoughtful planning ahead by the educator. They need to arrange for the kind of work which will create situations that of themselves tend to exercise control.
So designing activities that naturally encourage cooperation and focus, it sounds, again, more demanding for the teacher than just laying down the law.
Much more. It requires real pedagogical skill and foresight. Which brings us to the idea of purpose.
Ah, yes, purpose. He liked that progressive education emphasized the learner having a purpose.
He thought that was one of his strongest points involving the learner informing the purposes of their own activities. But
there's always a but with Dewey, isn't there? He refines it.
Yes. He makes a critical distinction between a mere impulse or desire and a genuine purpose.
Okay, what's the difference?
A genuine purpose isn't just wanting something, it's an end view. It involves foresight of consequences.
Thinking ahead about what might happen if you pursue that desire.
Exactly. And that foresight requires 3 things, according to Dewey.
Okay, what are they?
1. Observation of surrounding conditions. You need to understand the situation you're in.
Makes sense, too.
2. Knowledge of what has happened in similar situations in the past, drawing on previous experience or learning.
Okay. And 3?
3. Judgment, which puts together what is observed and what is recalled, synthesizing the current situation with past knowledge to make an intelligent plan.
Observation, knowledge, judgment. So forming a real purpose is actually a pretty complex intellectual act.
Very much so. It's not just, I want to build a fort. It's observing the materials available, remembering what worked or didn't last time, judging how to put them together effectively.
So the teacher's role isn't to just step back and say, okay, go build your fort.
No, absolutely not. The teacher shouldn't withdraw. Their guidance, drawing on their larger experience and a wider horizon, actually helps the student develop that genuine purpose.
Yeah.
It aids freedom, it doesn't restrict it.
How? By helping with the observation, providing relevant knowledge, guiding the judgment?
Exactly. Helping pupils refine their impulses into workable, intelligent purposes. He sees it as a cooperative enterprise, a reciprocal give and take between teacher and student.
Okay, that's a really active role for the teacher in shaping purpose. Let's shift gears slightly to how knowledge itself gets organized. Subject matter. Where does Dewey start?
He insists that any study, whether it's math, history, science, has to start somewhere real. It must be derived from materials which at the outset fall within the scope of ordinary life experience.
Start with what the learner already knows or experiences.
Right, you can't just drop abstract concepts on them, but that's just the beginning.
Where does it go from there?
The next step is the progressive development of what is already experienced into a fuller and richer and also more organized form.
So moving from the familiar to something more structured.
Yeah, a form that gradually approximates that in which subject matter is presented to the skilled, mature person. It's a journey.
And the educator needs to guide that journey.
Yes, they need that long look ahead. They have to select those things within the range of existing experience that have the promise and potentiality of presenting new problems, things that will push the learner forward.
Ensuring connectedness and growth, making sure each step builds on the last.
Exactly. It's about creating a pathway from everyday experience towards more formal, organized knowledge.
So he's definitely not saying, as some critics maybe thought, that progressive schools should just ignore the past or ditch organized subjects.
Not at all. He explicitly argues against the idea that progressive schools can or should ignore the past, just because traditional schools overemphasized it.
Why does the past still matter in his experiential model?
Because, he says, the achievements of the past provide the only means at command for understanding the present. You can't make sense of today's world without knowing how it got this way.
So history, for example, isn't just dates and names.
No, students need to dig into the roots in the past to understand current social issues, political problems, technological developments. The goal is to make acquaintance with the past a means of understanding the present.
Using the past as a resource, not a prison.
Well put.
Yeah.
And when it comes to organizing knowledge, he holds up one area as a kind of ideal pattern.
Which is?
Science.
Ah, okay. Why science?
Well, first, because contemporary life is just saturated with it, right? Electricity, technology, health, it's everywhere. He thought students should encounter science through its everyday social applications.
Seeing science in the real world, not just labs.
Yes. But it's more than just understanding how gadgets work. Understanding science, for Dewey, is crucial for grasping economic and industrial problems.
Okay, connecting science to society.
And even providing measures and policies by means of which a better social order can be brought into existence. He saw science as a tool for social progress.
But beyond the content of science, it's the method he values.
Profoundly. He sees the scientific method as a pattern for all intelligent learning and problem solving.
So what are the key features of that method that he thinks apply everywhere?
He highlights 3 things. First, treating ideas as hypotheses.
Okay, meaning?
Meaning your actions are guided by some leading idea, but you don't assume it's absolutely true. You treat it as something to be continuously tested and revised.
Being flexible, willing to change your mind based on evidence.
Exactly. Second, testing by consequences.
Yeah.
Ideas are validated or rejected based on what happens when you act upon them.
Learning from results. Paying attention to what actually works.
Crucially, yes. Observation of consequences is key. And third, keeping track.
Keeping track, like taking notes.
More like reflective practice. Reflective review and summarizing of your ideas, your actions, and the consequences you observed. He calls this the heart of intellectual organization and of the disciplined mind.
Hypothesis, testing, reflection, that cycle.
That's the engine of intelligent inquiry for Dewey.
So organizing knowledge isn't some artificial thing forced onto experience. It grows out of experience when it's handled intelligently.
Precisely. He says, no experience is educative that does not tend both to knowledge of more facts and entertaining of more ideas and to a better, a more orderly arrangement of them. Organization is natural to learning.
And it starts simply?
Yeah. A young child's experience centers about persons and the home. Education's job is to gently modulate this personal, practical organization towards a more objective intellectual scheme of organization,
Moving towards more abstract or systematic ways of thinking.
but always as a means to better understand and navigate the world, especially social relationships, not just organization for its own sake.
And this connects back to basic cause and effect.
Absolutely. Even very young children grasp causal relation, touch a hot stove, get burned. Learning involves getting better at understanding those connections.
So judgment grows as you get better at picking the right means for the ends you want.
Exactly. Growth in judgment is growth in selecting means employed to ends attained. That's why he justified labs and workshops in schools.
Not just for busy work.
No, because they promote focused attention on the relation of means and ends, and then to consideration of the way things interact. They're places to figure out how the world actually works, physically and socially.
Wow. What an incredibly rich and integrated way of thinking about education. It really ties everything together.
It really does.
So just to kind of wrap things up here, Dewey's core message and experience in education seems to be that real education isn't about choosing between rigid tradition and aimless freedom.
Right. It's not that simple either or.
It's something much deeper, a really thoughtful, intelligently guided development that's built on a solid philosophy of experience.
Grounded in those key principles. Continuity, how experiences connect over time, and interaction, how we engage with the world right now.
It feels so relevant today, maybe more than ever, with all the debates about education reform and, what kids really need.
Absolutely. But he doesn't pretend it's easy.
Yeah.
He makes it very clear that this new education, this experience-based approach, is not an easier one to follow than the old road, but a more strenuous and difficult one.
More difficult. Why?
Because it demands so much more from everyone involved. It requires constant observation, reflection, planning, flexibility. It needs serious cooperative work from teachers, students, the whole community.
It's not a formula, it's a practice, a demanding one.
A lifelong commitment, really, to learning how to learn from experience intelligently.
Okay, so as we finish this deep dive, here's a final thought from Dewey to leave you with. He says, there is no discipline in the world so severe as the discipline of experience subjected to the test of intelligent development and direction.
That's powerful.
It really is. So think about that. How does that challenge your usual ideas about discipline? We often think of discipline as external rules or maybe rote practice.
Right. But he's saying the real discipline comes from actively, intelligently engaging with experience and learning from it.
Does that perspective free us? Or does it actually demand more from us, more reflection, more judgment, more self-direction? What new kinds of discipline, maybe internal disciplines like curiosity or critical thinking, might emerge if we really embrace learning this way?
Something definitely worth pondering.